Congratulations, everybody. You made it to the very end. So this is our last review before we get into the big review, getting ready for the exam. Now, this particular chapter is a very understandable chapter because we are living it right now, or it's pretty recent history to how we're living right now. So let me start off with one that is a bit controversial, the population explosion. And I know in our project we learned about the Malthusian theory of population, but let me just speak in facts. When I was born, there were 4 billion people. As I'm speaking to you, there's 8 billion people, and it brings up these big philosophical questions. How many people can exist on this planet well? What should we do in regards to the environment as populations go up? Should we incorporate birth control measures? These sorts of things. Now, these are opinions, and you may have to make an argument on the AP exam. But the fact is, due to really good medicine and better food and technology, that keeps us warm and keeps us in a good position, that these are the things that cause the population to go up. Whether that's a good thing, a bad thing, a neutral thing, I will leave that up to you. And related to this population explosion, we have to move away from fossil fuels the way we've been doing business for 200 plus years. And the reason being is quite simple. There's only so much oil in the ground. There's only so much coal in the ground. It's finite. There's only so much, and obviously the pollution side of it. So the green revolution is this idea to sustain this huge population. We're going to need to move into alternative fuel sources, whether that be wind or water or solar or nuclear, these sorts of things. Now I'm going to introduce you to somebody, and I'm perplexed by this. There are certain people in textbooks, I don't know why they're there, and there are certain people who are glaring omissions because they ought to be there. And I'm going to introduce you to one of my heroes, Norman Borlaug. This man, they estimate 1 billion people are alive on planet Earth because of the innovations this man invented or came up with. And he is the father of the Green Revolution. And he devoted his life to grow more nutritious and more food for the people. And his techniques have been adopted globally. And a whole lot of people are alive because this one man lived. So thank you, Mr. Borlaug. Good man, one of my heroes. So anyway, moving on. Global urbanization. So with these big populations, people are opting to move to the city, and it's fairly quick, this transition. To compare, 1900, only 15% of the world lived in cities. In 2007, that was the tipping point where more people lived in cities. Now, we live in a city. We understand the good aspects of living in a city. For example, if I need to get some Advil because I have a headache, I'm within a couple miles of a CVS, a Rite Aid, and a Walgreens. I can go to any type of food just about within 5 miles. Hey, I want some Indian food. I want some Greek food. I want some Mexican food. Easy. These are the good things. Now, if you've ever been in a traffic jam, you know the downside of a city. If you ever had your car broken into, like I have, you know the downside of the city. If you've ever seen the pollution and the dirtiness of a city, but people are opting to move to cities. Whether you do as an adult, I'll leave that up to you. Now, there are certain cities that get the designation of mega city. Fairly easy idea. You have to have 10 million or more. At the time of writing this PowerPoint, there are 37 megacities. Now, it's estimated there's going to be 41 by 2030, and that number should go up in time. And I've said this 100 times in class. If the world is a car, the city is the engine. Let me put a modern spin on it. If the world is the car, the mega city is in it. Okay, and I think you can identify a few of these. You know, there's New York and LA, Mexico City, Paris. These are the big, big cities in the world. Now, labor migrations. Now, this is when people move, whether it be legal or illegal, they leave their homelands to get a better economic opportunity. Now, I am the grandson of somebody who left Italy, who came to Detroit to work for Ford Motor Company, so I understand this. Now, it relates to megacities because if I don't have economic opportunity, you're probably not going to go from rural to rural. You're going to go to the city. That's where the opportunities are. And obviously, this is a politically contentious issue. So I'm going to take the middle ground approach. I think a lot of people say immigration is a need, they fulfill jobs, it's a good thing. However, let's say you had 100 jobs and 1,000 people show up. What do you do with the other 900 people? So these are the tough questions. And I got to make a big point because in class it emerges as just a US Mexico thing. This is an international thing. Believe me, I just got back from Paris and there were people from West Africa and North Africa and Bangladesh and Pakistan and India. There were a lot of people who left their prior homes to go to a mega city to try to make a better life for themselves. So labor migration relates to that. Now, in terms of COVID, it's fresh in our heads, and we're talking pandemics. You get what a pandemic is because you have lived through a pandemic. Now, the pandemic that was really rough was the Spanish flu, and as it became known, it really shouldn't have been, but I talked about that in class. So, COVID, at the time I'm writing this, 7 million people have died from COVID. Spanish flu is between 50 and 100 million. So pandemics have been part of the human story since the beginning. In this class, we learned about the bubonic plague in 1347, but this 20th century plague, the Spanish flu, was horrendous. I'm not saying COVID was good, but compared to the Spanish flu, it was a lot less fatalities. Now, HIV/AIDS, a little personal connection to this, not to say I have HIV/AIDS, not that personal, but growing up in the 80s, I got to see it firsthand how AIDS emerged in the early 80s. And at first, it was really dismissed as a disease between drug users and homosexuals. People didn't put a lot of time and effort and money into the problem, but then it hit the general population. There was a young man who was the same age as me, this little guy, and I remember his name was Ryan White, and he got it through a blood transfusion, and it was really sad. I related to that to say, here's this kid my age who got it just from bad luck, and kids were shunning him. They wouldn't let him into school. It was really heartbreaking stuff. And there was a man named Arthur Ashe who was a sports star, tennis star, very beloved figure. He got HIV as well. Magic Johnson, who was a big time basketball player, he got it. And I remember when it was announced, I was in high school. I was a sophomore or junior in high school, and I had some of my classmates get very emotional and misty. On par to when Kobe Bryant passed away. Happy to report as I talk to you, Magic Johnson's still doing very well. And the aid has come in, and the money has come in, and the medicine has improved. So it's a lot better than it was. But at this juncture, as I speak to you, in the 40 years of AIDS, 35 to 40 million people have died. So just a devastating, heartbreaking affliction. And I got to witness it growing up in the 80s firsthand. Now, cultural globalization is this idea. So well, you could even call it cultural imperialism to a degree, because old school imperialism, when I'm going to show up on a boat and take your raw materials, that's in the past. But what's happening now, these corporations are pushing their commodities into places in the world, and that's this idea of global, this cultural globalization. So, for example, here's a Buddhist monk in Southeast Asia having a Coca-Cola, and we see this in movies and clothing, consumer goods. I've had students that are very into anime, which is Japanese. My wife's really into yoga, which came from India. So we see this global culture of this world, even the video games we play and the connections we have. We have this very international world that a lot of you are fully aware of. Okay. Now, religious fundamentalism is considered a backlash against the secularism of modern times. So, secularism means non religious. Now, America is a secular nation. In theory, we separate church and state. It doesn't always work that way. But people who are fundamentalists, they feel religion should take a bigger role in society. And there's fundamentalists in all five world religions. I have to be clear on this. A lot of people feel the only fundamentalists are Muslim. That is not true. Of all the five world religions, there are fundamentalist sects. Now, that's different than a moderate adherent to religion where you say, yeah, I believe this. This is how I live my life. You know, I go to church on Sunday, but hey, you do your own thing. That's cool if you're different than me. That is not fundamentalism. When you say my belief system has to take, center stage in legislation and in the culture, that's fundamentalism. And that happened during this time. And it's still around, I will say. Now, Hindutva means a state of quality of being Hindu or Hinduness. Now, it's a fundamentalist religious ideology to have the hegemony of the Hindus, okay? So the reason this is included, I think, was to reinforce my prior point, that religious fundamentalism is not just a Christian thing, a Muslim thing, it's a Jewish thing, it's a Hindu thing, it's a Buddhist thing. So this fundamentalist belief structure happens in all of the religions. Now, Islamic radicalism, it's very, fresh in our minds. It's on the news a lot. And we have all these organizations, Al Qaeda, the Taliban, Boko Haram, ISIS. Now, this is a small minority of Muslim people, but it's really problematic geopolitically. And there's this fear of people becoming radicalized, and we've seen this in time. But again, if you meet a Muslim person, don't assume that they're part of this. This is a small minority. And I've had Islamic students say, I really resent the fact I'm getting associated with these really bad guys. And I'm just a regular person. I don't know why people equate me with that. So please don't do that. It's not a good thing to do. Now, the Anthropocene is more of a science term, but I think it's pertinent to history. Now, it's a concept that the Earth has moved into a new geological epoch, characterized by human domination of the planetary system. In short, there has never been a species that has had control over the planet like human beings, to the point our control is so strong, we are ushering in a new geologic epoch. Okay, so hopefully your science teachers taught you those things. And there's some evidence to the point. Here's one of them in terms of how we've changed our atmosphere from our actions. That has never been done from any other species in history. Now, the Holocene era, now this isn't more of a science term as well. This is the term given to the last 11,700 years of the Earth's history. And these are the times since the end of the last major ice age. And there's been climate shifts, this little ice age. So it's been a relatively warm period in between ice ages. So the point of that is, this time period, there's been a lot of growth and expansion of the human species, but a lot of it's been contingent on climate. Climate changes everything. As I taught you with the Ming Dynasty, what took down the Ming Dynasty was the weather. Okay, when I teach my regular world history class, when the Persians invaded Greece that first night, a huge storm took out a bunch of their boats. So nature always wins, in short. Now, climate change, because of our actions in the burning of fossil fuels, the temperature has gone up the last 50 years. And do not equate climate with weather. Weather comes and goes. Climate is a collective overall change, and we're seeing a lot of challenges based upon this. And there are some people who are trying to make some changes so we can improve upon this, and other people think it's a hoax. If you look at scientific data, it's not a hoax, but some people believe that. Now, second wave environmentalism is a movement where people are saying we need to do something about the Earth. So it happened in the 1960s. I'm reluctant to call it a civil rights movement. I don't agree with that. Civil rights movements are to better the conditions of a particular group of people. These are people who are saying, hey, we need to do some things differently to make improvements in our environment, because if we don't, we're going to have some major problems. Now, the Paris Climate Agreement happened fairly recently, where the majority of the world got together in an agreement to try to improve the environment. Now, America did pull out. We did go back. So the Paris Climate Agreement is the most modern present agreement. It's an improvement on the Kyoto Protocol that happened a few years earlier to try to, steer the ship in the right direction, if you will. So that is it. These are the terms, and we are going to be moving on to our AP reviews. I promise you're going to know how to do an SAQ, an LEQ, and a DBQ very proficiently, and we're all going to get 3s, 4s, and 5s on our tests. That's our goal. Okay. So thank you for watching.